Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris, coming to you from beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. We stopped over in New Zealand for a series of evening conferences on our way to Australia, where we'll also be delivering some talks on the faith and the great need for evangelization. Now, as many people may already know, the blockbuster trilogy The Lord of the Rings was filmed here in various parts of New Zealand over a period of almost 2 years. About 2 hours south of Auckland, where we are right now, is the Shire, Hobbiton, where all the hobbits lived and played. We wanted to go down to the Shire and do a vortex from there, but Warner Brothers has the entire Shire on lockdown because they're currently shooting for the 2000 December 13 release of The Hobbit. Bad timing on our part, but oh well. You know, it seems almost sacrilegious to come to New Zealand and not offer a tip of the hat to Frodo and Samwise Gamgee and Aragorn. There is a wonderful Catholic ambience to the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the characters. The author, devout Catholic J.R.R. Tolkien, wrote his magnificent work using his Catholic faith as the background, the canvas on which he painted. He himself wrote to a priest friend who had taken guardianship of him and his brother after their parents' death. The Lord of the Rings is, of course, a fundamentally religious and Catholic work. That's a quote from him. So how did it all begin? Well, Tolkien admitted that he absent-mindedly scribbled down these following words on the back of an exam paper that he was grading. Quote, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." The Lord of the Rings is not an allegory for Christ and the Church, but an invented myth about Catholic truths. So when you find Christ present in the Lord of the Rings, you find him present in the actions and the motivations of the characters, much as you can find him present in the world today through the actions of saints. In fact, at its core, this is exactly what the Lord of the Rings is, a story about the struggle of the interior life on the road to sanctity. Frodo is not an allegory for our blessed Lord, but for the saint trying to imitate our blessed Lord. Of course, there are parallels with our Lord, since there are parallels in every would-be saint's life with our Lord. That, after all, is the point. But Frodo is compelling in his heroic acts, not because he typifies our Lord, but exactly because he personifies the heroism of a Catholic saint. When Frodo steps forward and says he will carry the ring back to Mount Doom and cast it into the fires from where it was forged, he adds he will do this although he does not know the way. He's prompted by the inner voice to do what he does not want to do, does not know how to do, and yet he does it anyway. He obeys, even though he really does not really totally understand. And thus, obedience becomes the hallmark of sanctity. And what Catholic worth his weight in salt does not comprehend that obedience is the key to holiness. Understanding is something granted to us. Obedience is something asked of us. And the two don't necessarily have to intersect, at least not to a large degree. Many of the other characters in The Lord of the Rings tried to lay hold of the ring. They believed that they could accomplish great good with it. Even Frodo's personal Simon of Cyrene, Samwise Gamgee, even he has a brief period of temptation. But in the end, it is only Frodo who can safely deliver the ring to the fires of Mount Doom. Why? Because only Frodo is the one not overcome by pride. He realizes very plainly his own shortcomings, his own doubts and wonderings. And this is a signal element of humility. It is, in the end, his humility which defeats the Dark Lord Sauron and the evil kingdom of Mordor. Just as it was humility that allowed Christ to come into the world when Mary said, "Let it be done unto me according to your word." And just as it was humility that allowed our Lord to be nailed to the cross. Perhaps the single most important detail in The Lord of the Rings that cements this theme of humility to the Catholic canvas on which the entire myth is presented is this. Tolkien tells us that the date that Frodo casts the ring into the fires is March 25th. That date is recognized in the Catholic Church as not only the Feast of the Annunciation, when Our Lady said yes in humility, but also the date which for centuries Catholic scholars and theologians assigned as the date of our Lord's death on the cross. March 25th, therefore, is the date where what was begun in humility in Nazareth ended in humility on Golgotha, and evil was defeated. The Lord of the Rings is Catholicism writ large in mythic language. The ring represents original sin with all its power to corrupt and kill. Frodo is the saint in the making who is transformed by his obedience and returns to the Shire as the hero, the champion, who has saved his people. He is the model of masculinity, the sign of perpetual faith, of sacrificial love. Even though he saves the Shire, though, he cannot remain in it. He must leave. He must give it up. He says to Sam at the end of the book, at the end of the conclusion of the show, quote, "It must often be so, Sam, when things are in danger. Someone has to give them up, lose them, so that others may keep them." If it were possible to introduce into the realm of holy writings those things which are mere myths, the Lord of the Rings would surely assume its proper role. Archbishop Fulton Sheen once said, quote, "It is the supreme maxim of Christianity that the innocent must pay for the guilty." Sheen and Tolkien, one would imagine, are having quite the conversation right now. Reporting from New Zealand, home of the Hobbits and the Lord of the Rings, I'm Michael Voris. God love you.